Dear Mayakovsky, bring me stockings from Paris, perfume, lots of different powders, beads, a beautiful dress, and another one maybe with a deep neckline for the New Year's celebration. This is the kind of list Brik wrote to Mayakovsky in 1928. The shortage of cosmetics in the Soviet Union didn't stop women from taking care of themselves and looking beautiful. In this video, you'll discover the beauty secrets of the USSR. How did an actress manage to look 30 at the age of 70? Why did the first Soviet beauty contest end in scandal? What were beauty salons like back then, and how did our grandmothers do their makeup? My name is Vlada. Look what I have here. These are the original Red Moscow perfumes. Let me know in the comments if you've ever seen these at your mom's or grandmother's place. This perfume started being produced in the 1930s, and rightfully so. That decade in the Soviet Union can be called the most fragrant. Imagine by 1936, the Soviet Union had even surpassed France in perfume production, trailing only behind the United Kingdom and the United States. Polina Zhemchuzhina is credited with playing a major role in promoting Red Moscow. She was the wife of politician Vyacheslav Molotov and headed the famous Novaya Zarya factory. It is said that it was thanks to her that women in the Soviet Union gained the opportunity to treat themselves to exquisite perfume, fragrant soap, or delicate powder. As the head of the Zhirkos Trust, or TJ for short, she strove to make decorative cosmetics accessible to every woman. She literally said, "All the secrets of fashionable European salons, available to bourgeois ladies for enormous sums of money, we will make accessible to the Soviet woman." Thus, stores bearing the sign TJ began to appear in Soviet cities. There, one could buy scarce goods, lipstick, powder, perfume, and of course this made these stores extremely popular. In addition, these stores also sold everyday items like soap. Beauty salons and services were everywhere. And what do you think did people in the Soviet Union go to cosmetologists? Did they get plastic surgery? That sounds really strange. I always thought they didn't. In reality, there was actually a small cosmetology office after all. And who do you think was the initiator of its opening? Let's do it! Try to guess in 3 tries, as they say. Yes, the initiator was none other than Polina Zhemchuzhina, whom we already know. She went to Paris, saw the beauty salons there, and said, "Our women are no worse." And already in 1937, the Institute of Cosmetics and Hygiene was opened. It was said that this serious Soviet institution was something between a new type of hair salon and a good clinic. During the war, our surgeons gained incredibly invaluable experience reconstructing the faces of soldiers from scratch. The professionalism of our surgeons was recognized by the entire international community. When the surgeons went abroad to showcase their work and observe the work of their foreign colleagues, they received nothing but enthusiastic reviews. Foreign colleagues were also amazed at how our surgeons managed to do such high-quality work under very unusual conditions. The fact is, the Institute of Beauty didn't even have scalpels. All surgeries were performed with half of a razor blade, since there was no finer or sharper instrument available in the Soviet Union. And the threads used for body operations simply weren't suitable for the face, so horsehair was used instead. They needed extremely strong and thin threads. That's why the staff would go to stables and buy horsetails. After special processing procedures, the horsehair was manually threaded into a needle and then used for stitching. In the Soviet Union, plastic surgery was the only paid service in healthcare. But even so, almost anyone could afford it. A rhinoplasty cost between 15 and 30 rubles. Blepharoplasty cost 15 rubles and a facelift was only 7 rubles. The only problem was the year-long wait to see a famous surgeon. As they used to say, in the Soviet Union you had to wait not only for an apartment but also for plastic surgery. The thing is, preference was given to celebrities, relatives of high-ranking party officials, ministers and other important people. Modern television series are often criticized for having 30-year-old women and men play high school students, thus presenting an unrealistic image of teenagers. Take, for example, the actress Alexa Demi. At 28 years old, she played a schoolgirl. Or, for example, Audrey. She was 32 years old when she played an 18-year-old girl in the film Breakfast at Tiffany's. But in the Soviet Union, the opposite situation once occurred. Take a look at these shots. These are photos from the Soviet film The Starling and the Liar. According to the plot, the girl, the woman, is no older than 30. But how old do you think the actress was in real life? 40? 50? Can you imagine? The actress Lyubov Orlova was 70 years old when she played a 30-year-old woman. Her name became synonymous with eternal youth and flawless beauty. She truly became the #1 star. The beloved film star Lyubov Orlova turned specifically to the Institute of Cosmetics and Hygiene to get blepharoplasty, to remove sagging skin and open up her gaze. By the way, she had every opportunity to have plastic surgery, for example in Paris, but she chose to have them done in Moscow. Time went on. By the 1960s, the range of skincare products had expanded. Various creams appeared among the skincare products. Strawberry, wild strawberry. There were actually a lot of creams for tanning, against tanning, for freckles and others. For foundation, they used loose powders like Krasnaya, Moskva, Mask, Carmen, or more affordable ones such as Swan Down. And to apply the powder, they used ordinary cotton pads because powder puffs were practically unavailable. It was very difficult to get one. In the 70s, compact powders appeared, and at the end of the decade, the famous French Lancôme powder with a golden rose on the packaging. You had to hunt for it for a long time. The appearance of foundation creams in Soviet cosmetics was a real revolution. But unfortunately, the quality of these foundation creams was very disappointing. For example, the legendary Ballet foundation, which you can still find on store shelves today, applied very poorly and came in only one shade. It basically turned your face into a mask. Among Soviet lipsticks, the most famous was Elena from the Rassvet factory, and now a couple of Soviet life hacks for using lipstick. People often applied Vaseline on top of it instead of lip gloss, and to use up the lipstick all the way to the very end, people would scoop it out with a matchstick and apply it to their lips. If, for example, you had several leftover lipsticks, you could mix them together in a water bath. So, you take out the lipsticks, put them on a spoon and melt them over a water bath, and you end up with a new experimental shade of your own making. The next product is one you definitely know. In 1947, the Grimm factory released the famous Leningrad mascara, and despite the fact that this mascara didn't hold up well, would smudge and would sting your eyes even with the slightest contact with water, and it stung quite a lot too. I've seen comments where this mascara is called not just mascara but a real hell for the eyes because it was so painful. So despite all that, the mascara stayed in girls' makeup bags for quite a long time. After applying it, your eyelashes would turn into spider legs. They needed to be separated somehow. That's why Soviet beauties used the needle to separate their lashes. Of course, now this sounds absolutely crazy, bringing a needle close to your eyes, the slightest movement, and something very scary and irreversible could happen, as you can imagine. For an even greater effect, before applying mascara, they would curl their lashes with a heated curling iron. This was sort of the Soviet equivalent, apparently, of lash lamination or simply eyelash curlers. After curling, the lashes were dusted with powder and only then was mascara applied. Of course, eyeshadows were sold too, but the selection was very limited: green, blue, and brown. And here's a Soviet life hack how to choose the perfect eyeshadow for yourself. If you have green eyes, go for green eyeshadow. If you have blue eyes, choose blue eyeshadow. I would have chosen brown for myself. Over time, in the 80s, the range expanded with new shades featuring a pearlescent sheen. That's how girls took care of themselves at home. But what did Soviet beauty salons look like back then? There were hair salons, and they were actually very inexpensive. But the main problem was exactly the same as with plastic surgery. You had to stand in a very long line to get to a specialist. There weren't beauty salons in the modern sense, of course, in the Soviet Union. There were hair salons where you could get a haircut, dye your hair, lighten it, or get a perm to have curls. And alongside the hair salons, there were also cosmetic rooms. There, cosmetologists could do your makeup, tint your eyebrows or eyelashes. Prices for all services were set by the state. So getting a haircut in Moscow cost the same as getting a haircut in some small town. There were also manicure and pedicure specialists working in the hair salons. But to do a quality manicure, the specialists really had to make an effort. In terms of quality, the nail polishes were more like industrial paints. They were hard to apply, took a long time to dry, and didn't last well. The color selection was also limited. All shades of red, pink, and clear. Also, to get a new or experimental color, the specialists often mixed polishes together. And to add some interesting design like glitter, the specialists would take Christmas ornaments and pour the glitter from them into the polish. Have you also noticed that in the Soviet beauty industry, there were so many situations where women had to be, well, real inventors? Take a look at this girl. At just 16 years old, she became the center of public discussion and surrounded by rumors. People said all sorts of nasty things to her, both behind her back and right to her face on the street. And the university wouldn't accept her application. But what was the reason? What did she do? It was all because of the first official beauty pageant held in the Soviet Union. With the Gorbachev era, many things changed in the Soviet Union, including the idea to create a new projector beauty contest among the young women of the capital. That's how the first competition was organized, Moscow Beauty 88. But the thing was, absolutely no one knew how to organize the contest or what it should even look like. By what criteria should we select the beauties? We had no idea, admits the contest director. In the end, they decided there would be absolutely no restrictions on selection. Despite the contest being called Moscow Beauty, participants could include women from other cities, even married women and mothers. There were also no restrictions regarding body measurements. In other words, women of any body type could take part. Out of 2,500 applicants, only 36 were selected. Leonid Yakubovich became the host and one of the judges. At that time, he was still unknown to the public. The contest final was held in 3 stages. The women walked the runway in swimsuits, national costumes, and evening gowns. The funniest part is that the organizers had no idea that all the contestants' swimsuits were supposed to be identical. You know, that's usually how international beauty pageants are held. It's kind of an unwritten rule of the genre. But, as I already mentioned, the organizers didn't know this, so the girls just let their imaginations run wild. There were all kinds of swimsuits, some very modest, and others extremely revealing bikinis. The prizes in the contest were definitely worth competing for. The first grand prize was a free cruise. There was also a trip to a youth meeting in Warsaw, a trip to a festival, a television, a cassette tape recorder, and much more. But the final round of the contest turned out to be quite awkward. 6 girls made it to the finals. The contest director recalls, "When there were only 6 contestants left in the final, we realized we hadn't even checked their passports. So we took a look. The first girl was Oksana Fandera. At that time, she had just arrived in Moscow from Odessa to make her mark, but she didn't have a Moscow residence permit, so she couldn't be crowned the Moscow Beauty Queen. The next girl was Ira Suvorova, but she couldn't be made the winner either, since it turned out she was married and had children. But she couldn't be disqualified from the contest. After all, she was one of the finalists, so it was decided to call her Mrs. Moscow. These decisions were very strange. Let me remind you that when the girls were first selected, there were no restrictions at all. So why at the final couldn't an out-of-towner or a married woman become the winner? The third girl was Lena Peredreva. She was rejected for a very odd reason. She looked like a professional model, but what we needed was an amateur. Next was Lena Durneva. The contest director said, "It's silly, of course, but just imagine how it sounds. The first Moscow beauty, Elena Durneva." It was impossible to change her last name in just one day. The competition came down to Masha Kalinina and Katya Chelichkina. Kalinina became the winner. To the surprise of many, including Masha herself, of course, the public was dissatisfied. Masha was called names, people said nasty things to her, and rumors grew that, as they say, her place was bought and she was somehow connected to those at the top. But she didn't have to listen to these rumors for long. Masha went to Europe, and when she turned 18, she moved to the United States. And she stayed there ever since. Now, Maria works as a yoga instructor, The white night descended like a cloud. The wind is guessing at the young spring. I hear a familiar voice, see your face. Why is this? What am I doing? This is one of the beauty secrets of the USSR. If your lips are chapped, apply a mask of natural honey every other day. You need to keep this mask on for 20 minutes. A cottage cheese mask also does a great job of smoothing the lip epidermis. You just need to add a small amount of cream to it. In the Soviet Union, they published special magazines where you could find plenty of self-care tips. Here's one of them, for example. If you regularly drink half a glass of carrot juice 3 times a day before meals, it will greatly help your stomach, kidneys, and intestines, which will give you a healthy complexion, and your tan will stick faster too. Here's another mask that has been tried and tested by many Soviet girls. It's a potato mask. This is the perfect folk remedy mask that removes oily shine and has a soothing and drying effect. This mask was also popular because it was so accessible. Any girl could grate a potato into a mush and apply it to her face for 10 to 15 minutes. Oily shine and pimples were fought by washing with oatmeal. The oats were ground into flour, then water was added, and the resulting paste was used to wash the face. Oatmeal powder deeply cleanses the skin and gently polishes it, giving it smoothness and radiance. It's better not to wash your face with oats every day. Do this kind of peeling once a week or less often. If you're a fan of hot baths, try more natural remedies from the Soviet Union instead of your usual products and bath bombs. In Soviet times, relaxing pine needle baths were popular. To prepare one, you need half a kilogram to 1.5 kilograms of pine needles, buds, and bark. You need to boil them in 3 to 4 liters of water for 10 minutes. Let the decoction steep for 4 hours, strain it, and then add it to your bath water. Here's another beauty secret. Washing your face with milk. Milk has a soothing effect on the skin. This procedure is done after cleansing your skin. The milk is diluted with hot water to the temperature of fresh milk. And if your skin is inflamed and you need to reduce the inflammation, then instead of hot water, add a strong good chamomile or linden tea to the milk. That was all the most interesting information about beauty in the Soviet Union. If you're interested in learning the beauty secrets of Korean women or what Asian girls in general do to look beautiful, you can watch my previous video. Subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and bye-bye everyone.